Hey there everybody, this is Caitlin here and welcome to our second video of the day, and we are following it up with today's spoilers from Force of Will for Echoes of the New World. In particular, we are finally getting a little bit of a glimpse at the darkness, or rather the Will of Despair cards, because obviously previously we've been privy to the Will of Hope. Well, now we're going to see the opposite side of it. And of course, just as I kind of predicted, the Book of Dark is what we're going to have for the equivalent for the Will of Despair kind of ruler. It is a fairy tale, a darkness one. Just like the other book, it has a Judgment of X and Energize for Darkness. You cannot have cards with Will of Hope in your deck. You can also pay the attribute cost of cards with Will of Despair with Will of any attribute, which is obviously quite handy. Flipping over to its other side, it is called Lapis Story, Subjugation Fairy Tale, which is kind of weird. It's almost as if the Book of Dark is basically the story of Lapis, as opposed to like the story of like the heroes that we saw from the Book of Light. I wonder why we're seeing Scheherazade, or however you say her name, and Sun Wukong though, because obviously we know them as wanderers, but I will probably maybe get into discussing them next week or whatever, because I do have a theory video about why they are actually featured in this book. But going on to what the card actually does here, this card cannot be destroyed. Apologies there, I get a little bit tongue-tied. You may pay the attribute cost of cards with Will of Despair, with Will of any attribute, as does the front side. When this card enters your field, you may put a Resonator with Will of Despair with total cost X or less you own from outside the game into your field. And when a Resonator put into the field where this card leaves the field for a non-field zone, put this card into your rule area as a ruler. So essentially, basically the same as the Light Book, but obviously twisted around so that it works for Will of Despair as opposed to Will of Hope. And I am just loving this artwork yet again, because look at my girl Sylvia. She's down there and she's smiling, and I'm fingers crossing that maybe next week for spoilers we might get a Sylvia Resonator. I am like praying to all the heavens above that Sylvia will make her last debut essentially with one more card. I really want it so badly, because I mean, if Abdul can keep coming back or whatever, then then Sylvia gets a shot. I believe she deserves a shot. Next up we have, I'm gonna butcher this word here. Is it Ahamraman or Araman? I'm not quite sure how you're actually meant to say this. I apologise, but it is the Wicked Spirit Eye. A 2-cost Resonator. It's water and void, which is kind of interesting. 500, 700. It's a familiar. Will of Despair. You can pay 0, so basically don't pay anything. Your opponent reveals their hand. Play this ability only during your turn and only once per turn. So that's quite a dirty trick here, which kind of combos quite well. I think with this next card here, Abdul, again, I can't say his surname, Sinister Vizier. I swear, he's got so many cards now, like what? In this cluster alone, he's had 3 different Resonator cards, which is ridiculous. He's a 3-cost, 2 darkness, 1 void, 700, 800 human, Will of Despair. He has a resonance where if a darkness magic stone enters your field, target opponent discards a card from their hand. So that kind of works really well with the familiar, in that you can pay the 0 obviously and look at the hands. You can get a good idea of what is going on there, and then you can maybe wait for so don't call your stone straight away at the start of the turn. Like, use that other familiar to check their hand, to scope it out to see if there's any kind of threat there, and then when you hit that resonance, use it with Abdul to make them discard something. You obviously don't get to choose what they discard, but it also helps you know that you're not going to waste your different abilities and whatnot. Next up we have, again, I'm going to absolutely mess up this pronunciation here, my apologies, Yamata No Orochi, the Resurrected Calamity. This one is a hefty cost of 8, so it is 3 fire and 5 void. It has no attack and 1600 defense. It's a 12 apostle, Will of Despair with swiftness. When this card enters your field, it deals 800 damage to each other Resonator, which, it's just so-so. But whenever this card attacks, it deals 800 damage to your opponent and each other Resonator, which is kind of interesting considering the fact that this has no attack. But with that much damage, you'd be thinking that with the trigger ability of whenever it attacks, surely then it would kill the majority of things, because 800 is pretty decent, unless obviously it's not going to be killing anything with its attack, obviously, unless you give it a way to gain attack, like maybe use the the ninjutsu thing that gives 1,000 until end of turn. But it is an interesting thing, although I'm not quite sure if there's maybe going to be a way to try and cheat this in, because obviously it's a hefty cost. by the time you maybe get 8 stones, the game might like be over by then. I mean, it is a good card, but it costs quite a lot. So I would think that you need to try and find a way to cheat this in. Maybe potentially with maybe the trick with like Lapis and the 12 Apostles, flicker it in with Lumia and all that stuff. That may be a good way to like try and like get it in for cheaper. Next up we have, I'm going to mess this up again. My apologies. At Tawil. Well, I know him as Yogg Sothoth. I know him as Yogg, and I will refer to him as Yogg. He is a 7-cost Resonator. He is 2 water and 5 void. He is human/Cthulhu. He is 800 attack and 800 defense, obviously Will of Despair. When this card enters your field, search your deck for up to one non-chant card with total cost 1, up to one non-chant card with total cost 2, and up to one non-chant card with total cost 3, and put them into your field. Then shuffle your deck. So this is a really great way, I feel, even though it's got a bit of a hefty cost, for you to search out your deck and basically get a bunch of stuff out. So consider all the things that maybe cost 2 or cost 3. You know what costs 2? Abdul. Do you know what costs 3? The Altian Guardian thing that means that your opponent can't attack more than once per turn and all that stuff. You know what costs 3? I don't know other stuff that costs 3. Like Tama's costs 3. Not 3. I mean 1. That's what I mean. I'm getting confused with all my numbers here. But this is quite a good card for like dragging stuff out of your deck and just like, you know, it's a good search option, even though again it's a bit costly. You could maybe like try and cheat this in if like say you weren't particularly using this Dark Rule or whatever for the Will of Despair. If you were maybe using, I'm trying to think, like Rising from the Depths, like with Ancient Magic and whatnot, it lets you put 3 water resonators into your field. Heck, you could put down 3 of these Yoggs, I think, because I don't think it specifies a cost, but that would be really interesting, I think. Moving on to Tell a Dark Fairy Tale. This is essentially the opposite version of the Light Fairy Tale one, so it's 1 darkness, a chance. Look at the top 4 cards of your deck. You may reveal a card with Will of Despair from among them and put it into your hand. Put the rest on the bottom of your deck in any order. I can't really tell too well what seems to be going on in the kind of picture here. Seems on the left, it's like obviously documenting when Lapis turned Atarathka into a regalia, and by the look of it from the drawing here, I'm not quite sure, because it looks like it's like a black hooded figure. Could be representing Al-Hama, or it could be representing Gil Lapis himself, but there's like a dragon off to the side. I'm not too sure what's that in the corner. Something seems to be on fire, and there's a castle and everything like that, so it's kind of hard to tell what is actually going on in that picture. And then the last card for today is the Final Battle, which is technically like well, it's kind of complicated because it's one of those X cost things, so it's like 1 darkness and then X void. You may pay 200 life rather than pay 1 up to X times to play this card. J/Resonator, your opponent controls gain -X until end of turn, where obviously X is the amount that you pay towards the void cost. Now, people are saying this is potentially overpowered. This is potentially either too good or too bad. I guess it just depends on how you view the kind of trade-off here. So people obviously saying that you may pay 200 life rather than pay 1. So that is obviously a viable option. It's not saying that you have to pay 200 life to pay towards the void cost. You can easily just use that with your will from your stones and whatnot. I guess it just depends on how big a board your opponent has and how much you need to ramp up. Because obviously there's big resonators, like you've got your Guibers, you've got your Izanagis, you've got you know, like Prithia, because it says J/Resonator, so it would count for rulers as well on the field. You've got all of them. So it's just like how much are you willing to like put into the pot essentially to get rid of something that's on the field? How big a board wipe or how big of a target do you feel like you need in order to, like, if you feel like you have to pay life in order to get rid of something? Is something on that field bothering you that much that you feel like you need to pay your own life to play it? I think it's quite a situational card. Whether or not it will see play, I am not too sure, unless there's some kind of broken way to cheat and everything like that with this that I've not seen yet. Obviously, we've not seen the rest of the cards from the set, and, you know, we need to just wait and see if there's any kind of combo or something that will work. Hopefully, there's maybe a bit more life gain. Schrodinger's Observation is obviously very good for life gain as well and whatnot, so that would be quite handy to combo into that. But anyway, guys, that's all the spoilers for today. Let me know if you're quite interested in the Will of Despair. Seems to be there's like quite a variation in like kind of mechanics going on here. Who are you looking forward to? Me personally, I hope that Sylvia is getting a resonator. Probably I'm expecting that Valentina might get one last resonator, considering that she's featured in this book. And obviously we need to find out what Scheherazade and Sun Wukong are doing on the bad guys side. So I hope you enjoyed these spoilers, guys. Let me know in the comments down below what you thought of them. Be sure to leave a like, and I'll see all you guys next time.